For the longest time, quantum computing has felt like pure science fiction, right? This far-off promise of some kind of unimaginable power. But the story in 2025, well, it's not about some distant future anymore. It's about what is happening right now. We're going to take a look at how these machines have stopped being just a dream and are actually becoming practical, real-world tools that are plugging right into today's most advanced research.
Okay, so let's just dive right in with a huge question. We have these absolutely monstrous supercomputers, right? They can simulate entire galaxies forming, but they completely hit a wall when they try to design the perfect molecule for a new battery or figure out how nature makes clean fertilizer. And the reason they fail isn't about a lack of raw processing power. It's a much deeper, more fundamental problem that needs a totally new way of thinking about computation.
So that leads us right into this term you've probably heard thrown around a lot: quantum supremacy. The idea that one day some giant quantum computer is just going to switch on and solve everything, making all of our classical computers instantly obsolete. But the reality, here in 2025, is way more subtle and, honestly, a whole lot more interesting. That old myth is being replaced by a much more practical and powerful idea. Okay, to really get this, we have to dig into the core of the problem. It all comes down to this phenomenon called strong electron correlation. See, in some really important materials, the electrons are so tangled up with each other, so interconnected, that they basically act like one single, incredibly complex dance. You can't just calculate what one is doing without knowing what all the others are doing at the exact same time. And for a classical computer, that's a nightmare. The complexity just explodes exponentially, and that is the wall. And you can see here, this isn't just some abstract, theoretical headache. This is a major roadblock. It's what's stopping us from designing better, safer batteries for our cars and phones. It's why we can't fully understand superconductors that could give us a zero-loss power grid. It's why we can't copy nature's amazing tricks for making things like fertilizer without burning tons of fossil fuels. These are the grand challenges of our time. So if one giant, all-powerful quantum computer isn't the answer, then what is? Well, the solution that's emerging is this totally new and really powerful paradigm. It's about thinking of a quantum computer not as a replacement for a supercomputer, but as its highly specialized partner. And what you're looking at here is this massive shift in thinking, from this idea of supremacy to a much more grounded idea of utility. Forget one machine to rule them all. Think of it like a hybrid system. The quantum computer is kind of like the super powerful graphics card, the GPU, in a high-end gaming PC. It doesn't run the whole show, but man, is it an incredible accelerator for one very specific super tough job: solving that crazy electron correlation problem. So how does this partnership actually work? How do they talk to each other? Well, it relies on this really elegant strategy that you can think of as a kind of computational surgery. It's about targeting only the tiny part of the problem that truly needs that quantum power. And the technical name for this key idea is quantum embedding theory. Instead of trying to simulate, say, an entire battery molecule on the quantum chip, which would be way too big, scientists use this method to surgically isolate just the tiny, complex core where all that tricky electron correlation is happening. They call that the active space. And the rest of the molecule, the environment, well, that's handled easily and efficiently by the classical supercomputer. Okay, so here's how this whole thing actually plays out in the real world. First, the classical machines do the heavy lifting, screening maybe thousands of potential materials. Then an AI comes in and flags the most promising ones. The real magic, though, happens in step 4. The quantum computer is used in this tight little loop with a classical GPU just to solve that one small, impossibly hard part. That focus is what makes the whole process efficient and actually practical to do today. And look, this is not just some cool idea on a whiteboard. It's already being used to tackle some of our planet's biggest and most important challenges. So let's look at the concrete breakthroughs this hybrid approach is already making possible in 2025. Let's kick things off with fertilizer. The industrial method we all rely on to grow food, the Haber-Bosch process, is an energy hog. It eats up about 2% of all the energy the world produces every year. But get this, tiny bacteria in the soil do the exact same thing, at room temperature, using this amazing enzyme built around a molecule called FeMaco. For decades, being able to simulate FeMaco has been the holy grail for chemists. I mean, until just recently, the numbers required to do it were just
astronomical. The best estimate suggested that to accurately simulate this one molecule, you'd need a perfect fault-tolerant quantum computer with around 2.7 million of today's physical qubits, a number so huge it felt like it was basically science fiction forever. But now, check this out. In 2025, that number has been absolutely slashed. By using a new kind of hardware from a company called Alice and Bob, they're called cat qubits, and they're naturally more resistant to certain errors, the new estimate is just 99,000 qubits. That is a game-changing 27-fold reduction. It drags this monumental challenge out of the realm of the impossible and puts it squarely on the roadmap of the achievable. And this isn't a one-off thing. This progress is just spreading like wildfire. These same hybrid techniques are now being aimed at designing cathode materials for better, safer batteries. They're being used to predict how important enzymes in our liver will process new medicines before they even get to clinical trials. And they're even being used to hunt for brand new materials that can literally pull carbon dioxide right out of the air. Now, of course, to make all these breakthroughs happen, you need more than just a smart algorithm, right? It takes an entire ecosystem of brand new hardware and really sophisticated software, all working together in perfect sync. So one of the coolest things is that there's no single winner when it comes to quantum hardware. It's more like a diverse toolbox. You've got superconducting chips that are super fast. You have trapped ions that have incredible precision and connectivity. Neutral atom systems are scaling up to thousands of atoms now. Each one has different strengths and weaknesses, and the key is that research teams are now picking the right tool for the specific job they're trying to solve. And the glue that holds all this amazing hardware together? It's the software. You have platforms like NVIDIA's Q2Q that are basically the universal translator, letting a single program send jobs to a normal CPU, a GPU, and a quantum processing unit, or QPU, all at the same time. This software stack is what turns a bunch of powerful but separate boxes into a single programmable discovery engine. Okay, so what does all this mean when we zoom out and look at the big picture? It signals a really fundamental change in how we think about and, more importantly, use quantum computers. We've finally moved past just waiting for some far-off revolution and have actually started engineering a practical evolution. This quote just nails the new reality perfectly. The entire focus has shifted. We're not waiting around for a flawless million-qubit dream machine anymore. The era of good enough quantum computing is officially here. And in this era, today's noisy, imperfect machines can provide real, tangible value, as long as you use them smartly, as part of a much bigger system. So this is the big takeaway, the one thing to remember. We have left the era of quantum promise and officially entered the era of quantum utility. This isn't about some future advantage anymore. It's about a present-day reality where quantum is becoming an indispensable tool in the scientific pipeline, accelerating the search for the materials that are going to build our future. I mean, this new power opens up a design space that's almost impossible to wrap your head around. It gives us a new kind of control over matter. And that brings us to this final, really exciting question. Now that the door is finally cracking open to designing materials with atomic precision to solve our greatest challenges in energy, in medicine, in climate, what should we choose to build first?